The question now occurs on ordering H.R. 1595 as amended to be reported favorably to
This
the
is
House.
it. This is the vote,
All those in
guys. This
favor of
is the vote.
reporting H.R. 1595, say aye. Let the chair make sure everyone understands only one aye from Mr. Perlmutter counts. All those opposed?
No.
Oh.
No.
Same thing goes for no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it and the ayes have it. A recorded vote? A recorded vote has been requested.
Of course
All those
it
in
has.
favor of a recorded vote shall raise their hand and be counted. There's a sufficient second and a recorded vote is ordered. The clerk will call the roll.
This is the vote.
Mrs. Maloney. Aye. Mrs. Maloney votes aye. Ms. Velasquez. Aye. Ms. Velasquez votes aye. Mr. Sherman. Aye. Mr. Sherman votes aye. Mr. Meeks. Mr. Meeks votes aye. Mr. Clay. Mr. Clay votes aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott votes aye. Mr. Green. Mr. Green votes aye. Mr. Cleaver. Mr. Cleaver votes aye. Mr. Perlmutter. Mr. Perlmutter votes aye. Mr. Himes. Mr. Himes votes aye. Mr. Foster. Mr. Foster votes aye. Mrs. Beatty. Mrs. Beatty votes aye. Mr. Heck. Mr. Heck votes aye. Mr. Vargas. Mr. Vargas votes aye. Mr. Gottheimer. Mr. Gottheimer votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Lawson. Mr. Lawson votes aye. Mr. San Nicolas. Mr. San Nicolas votes aye. Ms. Tlaib. Ms. Tlaib votes aye. Ms. Porter. Ms. Porter votes aye. Ms. Axney. Ms. Axney votes aye. Mr. Caston. Mr. Caston votes aye. Ms. Presley. Ms. Presley votes aye. Mr. McAdams. Mr. McAdams votes aye. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez votes aye. Ms. Wexton. Ms. Wexton votes aye. Mr. Lynch. Mr. Lynch votes aye. Ms. Gabbard. Ms. Gabbard votes aye. Ms. Adams.
Aye.
Ms. Adams votes aye. Ms. Dean.
Aye.
Ms. Dean votes aye. Mr. Garcia. Mr. Garcia votes aye. Ms. Garcia. Ms. Garcia votes aye. Mr. Phillips. Mr. Phillips votes aye. Mr. McHenry. Mr. McHenry votes no. Ms. Wagner. Ms. Wagner votes no. Mr. King. Mr. Lucas. Mr. Posey. Mr. Posey votes no. Mr. Luke DeMeyer. Mr. Luke DeMeyer votes no. Mr. Huizenga. Mr. Huizenga votes no. Mr. Duffy. Mr. Stivers. Mr. Stivers votes aye. Mr. Barr. Mr. Barr votes no. Mr. Tipton. Mr. Tipton votes aye. Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams off aye on no. Mr. Hill. Mr. Emmer. Mr. Zeldin. Mr. Zeldin votes no. Mr. Loudermilk. Mr. Loudermilk votes aye. Mr. Mooney. Mr. Mooney votes aye. Mr. Davidson. Mr. Davidson votes aye. Mr. Budd. Mr. Budd votes no. Mr. Kustoff. Mr. Kustoff votes no. Mr. Hollingsworth. Mr. Hollingsworth votes aye. Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Gonzalez votes aye. Mr. Rose. Mr. Rose votes no. Mr. Stile. Mr. Stile votes aye. Mr. Gooden. Mr. Gooden votes no. Mr. Riggleman. Mr. Riggleman votes aye. Madam Chairwoman.
Chair votes aye.
The Chairwoman votes aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. King votes aye.
Mr. Lucas?
No.
Mr. Lucas votes no.
No.
Mr. King off aye on no.
Mr. Hill?
Mr. Hill votes aye.
Mr. Emmer?
Mr. Emmer votes aye.
Mr. Duffy?
Mr. Duffy votes no.
Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change his or her vote? If not, the clerk will report.
Drum roll, please. This is it. This will send the Safe Banking Act to the floor of the House of
Madam Chairwoman,
Representatives.
on that vote, there are 45 ayes and 15 noes.
A majority having voted in favor of H.R. 1595 as amended is reported favorably to the House. Mr. Perlmutter may now take his victory dance up and down the aisle. The committee will now take the votes postponed on amendments H.R.
Dun, 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 dun. We did it. Well, they did it. Perlmutter did it. Heck did it. 6 years in the waiting. The Safe Banking Act is on its way to the floor of the House of Representatives, voted out of committee 45 to 15. Breaking news. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Cannabis banking is on the floor of the House of Representatives and will be debated on C-SPAN. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Yes, JJ McCabe, Harley, Tater, thank you all for joining us this morning. We had, I think I saw DM Niles and Jocelyn Russell in there. Welcome, everybody, joining in this morning. New viewers all as well. We had to watch that. We listened to the debate all day yesterday and needed to watch that vote this morning. And there it was, folks, 45 to 15, passing the Safe Banking Act out of the Financial Services Committee and headed to the House floor. And then I'm sure there'll be various other committees that will take it up from there. Well, we'll see. We will see what happens. Stay tuned, everybody. This is an exciting week. There is more news coming out. Kyle Yeager at Marijuana Moment reporting that the prohibition of marijuana will be debated. It will be brought up, will be talked about, probably in the Rules Committee. I guess it's Rules. I'm not sure where. But somebody said they're going to talk about it. So it's coming up too, guys. We have action with cannabis. Cannabis 2020, it is the issue. It's bipartisan. Whichever candidate grabs, we have Sunday. You have to join us on Sunday because we have an amazing interview with the Guru of Ganja, Ed Rosenthal. We are premiering on Sunday. Subscribe, get notifications, join us live at 4:20. And Ed talks about cannabis and the election and a lot of other things. So join us on that show for our Revolutionary Spotlight on Sunday and every Sunday for Reefer Revolution Live, bringing you breaking news this morning. The Financial Services Committee of the House of Representatives, chaired by Maxine Waters, has just voted the Safe Banking Act that Perlmutter and Heck have been trying to get through for 6 years to get this hearing happening, this vote, this markup. And the Republicans picked it every time, and Maxine Waters brought it up, and they voted it out. It's going to the floor, people. Cannabis is on the agenda, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. This bill is all about getting cash into the banks because Whitey wants his weed money. And he's not getting a piece of it. There is an insurance amendment, I think, that was added into it, which is going to help greatly. Gives the insurance companies a little more leeway from prosecution. And we're going to see some action on scheduling. I know it. It's going to happen. States Act, probably going to happen. A lot of stuff happening. Join us Sunday. We're going to talk all about this vote and more. Wow. Very cool. Real Jingy, also, thanks for jumping in. What's that? Yes, Chela says we should go out for breakfast. I think it's a great idea. We can't go with Chela's in our studio right now in bed form. We're enjoying our new studio. You can see that on Sunday too, everybody. So thanks for waking up early with me, guys. I thought I actually woke up like 15 minutes late and I thought I missed it because they were delayed, but we got it. We got the vote. We did it. They did it. Thank you, Representative Perlmutter and Heck, for sticking with it and persisting. And thank you, Representative Chairwoman Maxine Waters, for bringing this up. And thank you to all the prohibitionists for reading your SAM newsletter into the record. And also Malcolm Gladwell's ridiculous article from the New Yorker was also submitted into the record by the prohibitionists. But and many a metaphor flew yesterday. Cart before horses, horses out of the barns, suspenders and belts, toothpaste and toothpaste tubes. But the main upshot is cannabis is here to stay, and they got to deal with it. So we'll see you on Sunday, guys. Join in at 4:20. Free the plant, free the people. Pot for peace. Yes, and vote Bernie 2020. Well, yeah, well, Cory Booker's town hall was really good last night. I gotta say.
I'm looking forward to Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
This weekend.
Yeah, she's gonna be here in L.A. Tulsi's gonna be in L.A. We're gonna go and see her. I don't know. I think this debate is gonna be certainly better than the last one. I just saw that in the chat. I had to bring it up. We'll see you on Sunday, guys. Peace.